All right, I want to welcome everybody to our December Steering Committee meeting. Before we get started, I want to call on our Vice Chair to approve our minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a copy of the minutes here with me, and I have read through those. I haven't found any problems. Maybe some members here may have, but if not, I move for their approval.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Let's move on. Rachel, call roll, please.
Commissioner Cush,
Present.
Commissioner Beverly,
Here.
Commissioner McAdoo, here. Commissioner Rather,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner Reed,
Here.
Chairman Harris.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, gentlemen, I want to start off by making some comments. First thing is we have gotten our reports in for November, and we had 14 deaths, overdose deaths, and we had 2 suicides. So the number is rising. However, I want to give some good news. I have, 3 years ago, Bill Spurlock was our superintendent, and when I was running for office, I had a meeting with him, and I challenged him because I knew he was probably going to be our superintendent, challenged him to help us form a educational program to put in our curriculum for our kids. Well, we worked on it, and 3 years later, we got it put in our schools for 3 high schools. Smyrna High, Smyrna Middle, and Smyrna Elementary. And we got our data in last Wednesday, and we're going to increase that from 3 to 12. So we're going in the right direction right there. It was a success, and we're going to start off with 12 in the northern side of the county, and then hopefully we can get that into every one of them. So I always give the dread news. I want to give some good news. Let's move on. First thing on the agenda is our 2023 meeting calendar. Gentlemen, it's on your iPad. If there's any discussion on this? Being none, go ahead, Commissioner Johnson.
Motion to approve it.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
I actually had a point of discussion.
Go ahead. Hold on, do you want to do a second?
I'd just stand by and make my point, and then.
Well, do a second, then we can discuss. If you don't want to do it, I need a second. Second, Pettis Reed. Now discussion.
Mr. Chairman, in regard to the commission meeting schedule for the full county commission, I just wanted to bring up, I do feel it might be beneficial to explore moving the commission meeting time to another week, just to allow for budget amendments and other items to be brought before the full commission, also the agenda to be sent out. We had one member actually abstain from a consent agenda because that was an issue. They did not have time to go over the full agenda prior to the meeting, and I just would hate for that to happen again. So that's just something I'd like to be strongly considered as we pursue this schedule.
Yes, I have gotten some phone calls from some commissioners, and this was going to be put on the agenda at the end. So we can either talk, gentlemen, right now I got a motion to approve this meeting agenda. Now, I'm going to go ahead, since this puts us in a situation. We can discuss, so I'm assuming that you're asking us to consider moving the county commission meeting to what week?
Forgive me, I wanted to write down to make sure I had the correct one. Ideally, I would think it would be the 3rd Thursday after the 1st Monday.
Okay.
Enough time.
Well, I believe we got, how many, 5 or 6 third weeks?
Okay.
Yeah, 7 out of 12, so it'd be 7 meetings. And you're asking for it to be on the 3rd Thursday?
Just to allow for
After
potential
budget?
After budget, yeah.
Okay. Mayor, go ahead.
I would like to be able to consult with my office staff and the directors as to how this might impede their productivity with regard to those reports. I know that I've talked to several members of the commission about their ability to deliver reports in a timely fashion and appropriately if the full commission meeting was moved off week, and so I haven't had ability to do that. So I'm somewhat concerned that this body might approve something without me first finding out the relative impact associated with such a move.
Okay. That's the mayor, but this is the commission. So we need to discuss this as far as where we go from here. I'm going to go with you, Mr. Chairman Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then go back here.
Just a quick comment. I think one of the issues that we've talked about is it's not the meeting schedule as much as it is the agenda getting out to where people can digest that agenda. A perfect example was our last meeting in November, where we had at least one commissioner abstain from voting for the consent agenda because they didn't get the attached paperwork to that consent agenda in time to digest it, to vote on that consent agenda. That's been the issue that we've been discussing for the last several months. It's not the meeting, it's the agenda process. I think the discussing moving it from the second to the third has some merit, but it probably should be discussed at length before any decision is made. A suggestion would be to take it like before the Budget Committee, because the Budget Committee is the one that has most of the information that goes on the full commission agenda. At least bring that topic up at budget later on this week, and then potentially at our December meeting for the full county commission, mention that that's in discussion and ask for feedback from other commissioners, and then maybe it come back before this committee in January for further discussion. I don't think we ought to just make a decision on the spot, but I think it does have some merit. There would be a couple of months to where that third week would have an issue, November and December being classic. But those are also things that we could probably work around as we do on other committee meetings. My suggestion would be that we take it to budget, let budget analyze it, and see how our finance director could get more information available full commission for us to digest those agenda items, and then maybe mention it at our full commission meeting this month and get feedback from them, and then bring it back here in January for further discussion and maybe even a decision at that.
Sure. I do have one question. One of the things that we have committees, and those committees meet. Most of all of us are on 2 to 3 committees. So we meet, and it is up to us to be informed on what goes on in these committees. These are on YouTube. These things are able to be reached. You know, when people say they didn't have time to do that, Jeff, I understand. Both of us being chairman, things get brought up. Just tonight, there's things going to be brought up tonight that we didn't know about. But I also feel that we, as commissioners, it's not necessarily right. It is what we should be doing, is keeping up with all these other committees, so that when we do have a consent agenda, we're ready to ask you or ask Trey to take it off and discuss it in more detail. So I kind of go both ways on that. I do agree with what you said. I'll need a motion to defer this to budget. Is there any discussion on this?
We not have a motion and a second on the floor?
Yes, we do.
Let's vote on that, and then we can talk about a motion.
Well, if we vote on that, we're going to have to vote on it because we got a motion in a second. So we're voting on approving the meeting schedule that is as on our iPad. Did everybody understand that? All right? All right, do roll call because this seems to be complicated.
You vote on that. I've looked at this thing, and it's pretty neat. Steering committee meets on a lot of Mondays where they're holidays, and you've already calendared those to meet on that Wednesday, which is really cool, and I commend you for doing that. And I would suggest other committee chairmen do that same thing if they fall on a holiday or a holiday week, to move it to a day like that Wednesday where it conflicts with that. Just go ahead and calendar those things, and then you won't have to discuss them later on in the year. I've noticed that on the steering committee, and I think that's the appropriate thing to do, is to go ahead and calendar those things. steering committee is the one that's most affected by it, and you've done a good job in go ahead and scheduling those for Wednesday.
Sure, thanks, Jeff. Go ahead, and before we vote, let me go ahead and tell y'all that as steering, gentlemen, our next meeting falls on a holiday. We will meet that Wednesday at 5:30 on the 4th. Got 4th, January 4th at 5:30 here. All right, we have a motion and we have a second. Go ahead.
Commissioner Cush? No. Commissioner Beverly?
No.
Commissioner McAdoo? Yes. Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, is there any more discussion on this? Michael, you good?
Yes. You're talking about this.
Talking about changing the county commission meeting.
All right, so I'll make the motion that this goes to budget first. Let them kick it around, talk about it, and at some point, hopefully in the following commission meeting, let the commissioners talk about it. And I'm like Chairman Phillips. If we pass something like that, guess what the discussion's going to be in the next commission meeting? Let's go ahead and take it to budget, let it go to commission, and let that discussion take place, because this isn't something that, changing a date affects a lot of people. From the mayor's office, department heads, even the county attorney's office. It affects a lot of people, So that's my motion. Let's send it on to budget and let them bring it to the full commission.
All right, we got a motion to defer this to the budget. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Cush. Discussion? Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This may be intentional or it may be an oversight, but the committee schedule as listed on SharePoint doesn't include risk management, nor does it include juvenile detention. I'm not sure if that was by design, but those are two relevant committees that might impact the mayor's office schedule, just for point of clarification. Okay. Thank you.
So we don't have the,
Insurance is on a different page,
yeah, it's on a different page, Mayor.
but juvenile detention is not.
Juvenile detention's not on there, though. See, Rich says risk
Yeah,
management.
risk management and insurance is on there.
Yeah. Insurance is on here, but your meeting is not. Juvenile detention what's how you call your? Juvenile detention board meets the first Monday of every month. Now,
And that has changed. So if
Go ahead.
that it now, exactly, it now meets for the remainder for 2023 calendar, the second Monday at 1 o'clock of every month.
okay, second Monday.
Yes, sir.
Has everybody got it?
Did you say 2023 would also be the second Monday?
All of 2023 will be for the calendar year 2023, the second Monday of every month at 1 o'clock.
Second Monday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we got it.
Can we clarify the month? This is the third Thursday after the first Monday, or just the third Thursday?
Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. This is to defer this matter and to send it to budget. So to my understanding, we're sending to budget that we want to them discuss changing the county commission meeting to the third Thursday of the month. Is that correct? After the first Monday. Now, you're going to run into property management on that. They meet that same time, so.
That's why we need further
Throw it over the
discussion.
budget.
Because
Okay.
we already meet on third Thursday.
Some of them are.
This, well, the commission,
Some of them are, not all of them.
Yeah.
yes. So this, I think there were 6 or 7 that meet on
There's 7.
third.
It'll affect 7 meetings.
Okay. We already do that, and sometimes it falls the way it falls, so we're switching one to another. Anyway, yeah, third Thursday after the first Monday is what's been presented, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Okay. I have a motion and I have a second to defer this matter over to the Budget Committee for discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, we're going to have to go roll call.
Right. Sorry, I'm getting my notes. Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Reed,
No?
Chairman Harris.
No.
4-3, motion fails.
All right. Move on. We need to confirm 2 Correctional Work Center Board vacancies, current terms to expire January 23rd. I have 2, hold on. All right. I have 2 applicants, Mr. Hartley and Mr. Puckett. I've asked them to come, and Mr. Hartley, would you come up and introduce yourself to this committee? Yeah.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name's Tom Hartley, and I've served on this board for a number of years, and I'm pleased with the progress that's been made out there. We have a real good staff, good administration out there. I'm retired, I have the time to give, and I'm willing to continue serving if you see fit, and certainly appreciate your support.
Is there any questions? Mayor?
For what it's worth, Mr. Hartley does an outstanding job, and I would strongly encourage and hope that this body would send his recommendation on to the full commission.
Thank you. Mr. Puckett?
Chairman, good evening. My name is David Puckett, and I've been on the board for 4 years. I'm really pleased with how the work center is run, the staff. As I joke with Mr. Reed coming in, I've been in and out of a lot of jails through my career. Just so you know, I used to be a deputy sheriff here in the early 70s, was assistant district attorney in several counties, so I have to go in and out of several jails. This is the cleanest jail I've ever been in, and that's been recognized as the best in the state of Tennessee by TCI. I would invite any of you, all of you, to come out and take a tour of it. It is immaculate, it is well run, and I'm just pleased to be part of it and would like to continue so.
Hold on, Mr. Puckett. Mr. Puckett, hold on. Go ahead, Mayor.
Thank you. Like with Mr. Hartley, Mr. Puckett does an outstanding job, and he's absolutely correct. This is the premier facility in all of Tennessee. If you haven't taken the time to visit this facility, I can't encourage you enough to do so. And it's in large part because we have an outstanding board, and we're extremely fortunate to have these 2 men. Again, like with Mr. Hartley, I hope you will strongly give them a strong recommendation back to the full county commission. Thank you, Chairman.
Any questions? All right, we have 2 applicants. We have 2 spots.
Mr. Chairman, I operate on the premise that if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. These gentlemen have come highly recommended by the mayor, so I move that we approve both of these without further ado.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cush. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Congratulations, gentlemen. Let's move on. We have we need to confirm a county commissioner vacancy on the audit committee. Gentlemen, I have applied for that. So, is there a motion?
I would make a motion to accept the application of Craig Harris, and so that, yeah, that is my motion.
Second.
The silence is deadening. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let's move on. Next on our agenda is the HR report by Sonia. Come on up, Ms. Stevenson.
Good evening, everyone. I printed out your the snapshot for, this will be from January to November, and I will just hit the high points instead of going over everything. For ADA, we had 4 activities this month, and those are primarily courtroom assistance, accommodations if an employee has a fit for duty and they need weight restrictions or something of that nature. We have 4 activities related to ADA. Personnel changes, we had 19 unique activities, 13 of those being promotions, so employees who were being promoted received those. Audits, we didn't have any audits this month. We try to put those during the months where we're not quite as busy, so we didn't have any this month. Benefits, there were 12 unique activities. We had received 2 applicants for county scholarships. One came in at the last minute of the day of the closing. We had 2 referrals for treatment, and our primary was we had 4 TCRS applications. Community involvement, we had 10 different activities for that, being CVB, Chamber Commerce Board, Main Street Board, Read to Succeed, 2 different activities of going out and doing mock interviews in the schools, and the United Way and Tennessee Achieves. Events with the number of participants, we had our Christmas tree lighting event this past Friday, and I saw several of you there. I think it was a huge success. The rain just sprinkled just for a few minutes, and then it ended up being a beautiful night. We had 55 different individuals participating in that event to help make that a success. Leave categories, we had 116 of those, 89 being for FMLA, 12 being for military, and then other extended leaves outside of that. Legal services, those are things where, whether it's a complaint and we're looking into it, primarily they're complaints that we're looking into, is what those would be. Offboarding, turnover, there were 28 activities. We had 14 exit interviews and 12 separations from the county. Onboarding, we had 101 activities, with 67 of those being around salary evaluation and the remainder of the activities being with new hire processes. Policy changes, we did 6 job description revisions and created 1 new job description. Unique promotions for our employees, and these are promotions that are provided by outside entities, specifically for our employees, whether it be special rate on mortgage lending or open a new account, apartment complexes, those type of things. Dollywood, we had 11 of those. Recruitment, we had 599 unique activities, 186 of those being new hire for applications. Wait a minute, I misstated that. Excuse me, we had 186 applications received, not 186 new hires, and that was referred to that. Reports, we had 227, primary being Title VI reports, open records request, and background checks. Special projects, we had 6. Those are just unique projects to the office that are requested by departments or either if the commission asks for something specific. Evaluation and testing, 137 of those. Again, those are related to background checks, drug screens, physicals, the firefighter physicals, those type things. 64 unique activities for Title VI. We trained 120 individuals this month for business ethics, drug-free workplace, employee handbook, sexual harassment, and Title VI. And that is the end of my report.
All right, any questions? Commissioner Cush?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sonia, on the testing, it looks like you try and run about 120 to 140 a month. Are those testing, is that a random kind of a test? Do you pull random employee tests for drug and alcohol?
So there are random testing. We have a third-party agency that we work with. It's called NTS, National Toxicology. We have an MRO. Dr. Greg Elam is our MRO, and we do that outside so that we send them a list of our safety-sensitive positions, and we do that every month with our active pool and send the safety-sensitive, and then they generate the report of who's pulled for a random. So randoms are included in that testing, yes. Also, post-accident testing. So say somebody had an accident and got hurt, we would do testing for that. Likewise, if somebody does property damage, backs into a mailbox or something, we do testing for that as well. Okay.
Any other questions? Need a motion to approve her report.
So moved.
Commissioner Cush, second Commissioner Beverly. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Next on it is our litigation list. Gentlemen, this is on your iPads. Is there any questions on this? As usual, I do have. Nick, I want to talk about number 7, which is Milton Investors Group.
Yes.
Can you let me know what's on that? And also, I'd like to know if you can comment on it. Are you aware of this lawsuit? It's on the Planning Commission. I was just curious as to why this thing keeps going on. So, go ahead.
Yes, sir. It has been going on for about, I guess, about over a year now, which is not terribly atypical in the court system. But this did come out of Planning Commission. It was a decision to deny subdivision plat in a rural area of the county. I appeared on behalf of the county on October 12th for oral argument after the submission of briefs. Generally how the process works, just so that you all know, is when we're dealing with this particular type of lawsuit that involves an appeal from a planning decision, is that there's not a relitigation of the whole case. The record before the Planning Commission is simply sent up to generally the Chancery Court, and then the lawyers argue on written briefs at an oral argument. That was done, as I stated, on October 12th, and we are awaiting the court's decision, and we're hopeful that they will side with the county and dismiss the appeal and find that the Planning Commission's decision was valid.
Okay. Anything on that? All right, the next one I want to move to is Rutherford County Sheriff's Office, number 3, and I apologize to the people out in the stands. I cannot say this name, so.
It's Raj Javangs. That is a negligence lawsuit brought under the GTLA, where a plaintiff alleged that she sustained injuries while in the custody of the jail. Upon intake, there was a there was a ring allegedly on her finger, and there was an attempt made to take the ring off, but it was not forthcoming, allegedly, and so she states that she was injured, and she also alleges another occasion where she fell and she was allegedly picked up in an aggressive manner, and her shoulder was injured. That's what her allegations in her complaint are. With personal injury lawsuits like this, the county is going to, defend them, particularly if it believes that the facts don't substantiate the claims. But one prerequisite to a lot of the discovery in the case is that the plaintiff has to be finished with his or her medical treatment related to the alleged injuries. Until that time kind of happens, the lawyers are kind of at a standstill because we don't know what the full extent of her possible damages could be. So the case is being litigated, it's in discovery, but as the time being, she apparently is still having ongoing treatment related to her alleged injuries, so that's where we are.
Do you happen to know the plaintiff's lawyer?
It's Ken Berger.
Ken Burr?
Berger, Ken Berger.
Is he a local attorney?
He is, yes, sir.
Good. Any questions on this? All right, gentlemen, let's move on. Number 7, we are taking it off, so we won't be discussing that. Number 8, absenteeism on committees and boards. I put this on here because we need to talk about some of the things. We're getting a lot of absentees on some boards, and I think right now we have, if you miss, and Nick, I mean, you might want to tell me, I think right now, it's 3 in a row on absenteeisms.
Well, I don't think that the county currently has in place right now any sort of restrictions with respect to the county commission or its standing committees. And I'm not really aware either of any other county boards that have in place restrictions that say that if you miss so many times, then you're automatically removed from the seat. I don't think that we have anything like that in place at current.
Well, gentlemen, this is up for discussion. I mean, these people, people are serving on these boards. It's a, a servant's heart. And so it's kind of a tough situation here, but I am getting some emails from some of the committees where some people are not showing up. So I guess my question to all you is, how do you feel about this, and what do you suggest that we do on this? Go ahead, Mayor.
I can say that I chair several commissions and boards, and I can think of 4 right off the top. And I will just say those boards, those commissions are very well attended. So I think it might be isolated to the type of board or commission or the time that it's meeting, and maybe that's something to be considered, because I know that risk management that I share, the CCRC that I chair, juvenile detention that I share, the workhouse, the adult work center that I chair, all those are very well attended, and we've not had an issue with trying to get a quorum at any of those meetings. So it makes me think that maybe it's either a scheduling issue or it's the nature of the work that the board is undertaking, which might want to be considered.
Probably. I mean, we got so many. Does anybody want to comment on this? Because, I mean, we do not have anything in place right now. There's a bunch of missed meetings. So I don't know how y'all feel about this. It's up for discussion. If you don't want to discuss it, we'll move on. But I know that certain people are calling and asking, that people are missing 3 or 4 meetings in a row. And we don't have any policy whatsoever. And as steering, that is in our department. So we don't have any policy whatsoever to remove somebody from a committee or a board for absenteeism. So, Michael, you need to say something?
Well, I want to clarify something. When you say boards or committees, are you talking about boards and committees or whatever that the commission affirms, or are you talking about steering committee and public safety committee? And
No, not at all. I'm not talking about any county commission at all.
We've talked about that before. I just want to clarify.
No, sir. I'm talking about appointed boards.
We have appointed, or the county commission appointed to a board or a committee, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
Yes. Is there any more questions on this, Michael?
Do all these boards that you're referencing, or committees, typically just meet once a month, or do any of them meet more than one time a month?
I believe they meet, Mike, that's a good question. I mean, some of them meet once a month, some of them meet once a quarter, like
But
Like audit committee, they don't meet but maybe 3 times a year,
okay.
so
But none of them meet more than
twice a year.
once a month, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just spitballing here. So what if you had a policy about you cannot have more than 4 unexcused absences? And then I guess the question is, well, how do you define an unexcused absence? But, or maybe just 4 absences, period, excused or non-excused. That would be a third of a year, right? If you had 12 meetings a year. I mean, that would be something. That'd be a benchmark to start from, I guess. And I don't know, you obviously have some meetings in mind, or this wouldn't be brought up for discussion. I know there's one particular meeting or group that I think where we've heard of some absenteeism that's a problem. So I don't have a problem with making a motion if you want to at least bring the discussion about having 4 unexcused absences that you could be potentially removed from a committee. But I guess if somebody's in the hospital for 4 months, there's got to be some there's got to be some gray area or for forgiveness somewhere. But we appoint, we can also remove. It's, I don't know. And again, that there may be some legal things or some HR things in there too that would be out of our control.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts from the legal side of things. You are right that with respect to many of the boards and commissions that we're talking about here today, the county commission has got the ability to either appoint them directly, or some of them the mayor appoints and they're confirmed by the county commission. I think it's very important when we're talking about an absenteeism policy to really know what particular county board or committee that we're talking about, and here's why. There are some that are strictly regulated by state law, for example, the BZA. And within that state statute, it talks about the ability to remove members that are appointed to that board, but it specifically specifies with respect to those members that they have to be provided notice and a hearing before they can be removed. That's not the case with every county board and commission. There are some county boards like the insurance committee or the beer board, for example, that are internal to our county government, right? The commission actually created those. They had the authority to do so from state law, but there's no strictures under state law that says who can and can't be removed or et cetera. The point being, there's more leeway, I think, with those particular committees or boards to institute a policy in place, which would be done via a resolution to amend the structure of the beer board, for example. I'm just picking them out because I don't think they have an absenteeism problem, but to specify that those members that are appointed to that particular board, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, if XYZ happens, they're going to be removed. I think, though, two last things. Really, it depends. You might want to ferret out which boards are having the issues. And I know that one for discussion was the PBA, and that's no secret. And and you heard Commissioner, I asked that item be pulled. Chairman Harris, I asked that it be pulled because I'm working with the PBA's council and figuring out a mechanism by which we can kind of tighten that up a little bit, because there may be the ability to do that and institute maybe through their bylaws or some other mechanism, an absentee policy for that. But one other suggestion I'd have, the commissioners, you hold a political weight, and you appointed these members, or at least you confirm them. So if you are having some issues, the first line of defense would be maybe to call that board member, if you have a relationship with them, and say, this is a problem, and maybe put some political weight on them and say, can you just resign? Can you resign from this so that we can fill the seat? Now, if we want to have a discussion of really going down this path to institute an absenteeism policy, if that's the will of the steering committee, I'm happy to assist with that. But I think we got to be really particular and specific on what board or committee we're going to be tinkering with.
I agree completely. That was going to be my question is, did state law dictate what path we can go to begin this. On certain boards that do not have any pathway set out in state law, I think we also need to rely on the chairman of that committee to be able to outline what's going on with his folks. I mean, we just appointed some folks that have been on the committees for quite some time now. This could be an isolated incident just over a quarter of a time. So I think the chairman needs to be involved in maybe outlining a way for the chairman of that committee to be able to recommend, hey, we're either not able to have a quorum or we're running into chronic absenteeism. I'd like to recommend removal.
Well, I think the discussion is more, we don't have any policy whatsoever. So if we continue to go through this, there's nothing for us to do. So I tell you what we need to do. Let's put this in, think about this. Everybody, talk. I'll talk to some chairmans and see exactly and be specific on which committees. I don't want to call them out at this moment, but I will next meeting, and we'll discuss from here. And is everybody good with that? You good with that? Okay, let's move on. Juvenile detention report, Mayor Carr, go ahead.
Thank you. Several things today. The Juvenile Detention Board, number one, as we already mentioned, we changed the meeting date from the first Monday of the month to the second Monday of the month, same time at the Juvenile Detention Board. The discussion around a meeting place, especially as it relates to a potential retreat, some of the board members were wanting to have circled back to the discussion this body had a month ago when we talked about revising the private act that authorized the meeting place only at the Juvenile Detention Board. And I believe that there's some discussion, Mr. Chairman, about expanding that private act to include here at the courthouse. And finally, we will begin, which was the purpose of the establishment of this particular board, we will begin in January an exhaustive review of the SOP, the Standard Operating Procedure, to the extent that the board has any oversight or input in what that looks like. We'll begin that process. So, and that concluded the board meeting today.
Any questions? None? All right, let's move on to Juvenile Detention Board of Commissioners Charter. Gentlemen, we approved this, and it has been drafted. It is on here. I'm not going to read it. It's very lengthy. But the three things that we are on here again, I'll remind you, is moving the meeting place from the Juvenile Detention Center to the courthouse, having 2 new commissioners to be on that board, and the third thing is that any hiring or firing must be confirmed by this board, the county commissioners. So we had the draft. This is going to be a change to the private act, which means we got to pass this to the county commission. We have 2/3 vote twice. So this is the resolution. If you gentlemen want me to read it, I'll read it, but I think it's all in there. You can read it from there. Go ahead.
One suggestion, if I may, Mr. Chairman, that sometimes it's more appropriate to meet here at the courthouse than at the Juvenile Detention Center. And likewise, there may be times where it might be just as appropriate to meet at the JDC. I would request respectfully that the steering committee leave that ability up to the chair about where to call the meeting. It could be either here at the courthouse or at the JDC, if that's okay, and only because sometimes, as in today, we had staff members make presentations, and it might be difficult to have multiple staff members leave the JDC facility to come to the courthouse.
Yeah, I battled with this. Nothing against you, Mayor Carr. I just think that your committee meetings are so important, and there's no room. I mean, there's no room in there, and then people come in there, and it's kind of like you're standing in a room the size of 205. So it's in the charter that we meet here. So that's in the charter, and that's what we're voting on. We need a motion to move this to the county commission to be ratified by the county commission on a 2/3 vote. So do we have a motion to move this forward?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I got a motion to move, and I also got a second from Commissioner Beverly. Let's do a roll call on this, please.
Commissioner Cush,
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly,
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo, pass. Thank you. Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, let's move on. I want to announce one seat on the Limbaugh Library Board. We're announcing that. Put in your application, have it in 1 week before the next steering meeting to be considered. Also, I've already said this once, I'll say it again. Our steering meeting is on Wednesday, the 4th of January at 5:30. All right, that moves us on to any other business. I believe the mayor wanted to address this committee, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, something I would bring before this particular body is the idea that in Nashville, the Tennessee General Assembly in January will convene the next General Assembly. I forgot what number it is, but we're well up into the hundreds. And as they often do, they take up matters that are of particular importance not only to this county but to this body. And for quite some time, even when I served in the General Assembly from 2008 to 2014, I can remember several times thinking that it might have been appropriate if Rutherford County, along with some other counties, had a more viable and consistent presence in the General Assembly representing their interests. And so and I've consulted with Nick on this, and while it's not necessary, I think it's very, very prudent that I come before this body with the idea and searching for the recommendation to take to budget the idea for requisitioning for an RFP for the services of a lobbyist that represent our interests in Nashville. And so that's my request and that's my ask, because Rutherford County, as you know, I've said it many times before, by this time next year, we will be the 4th largest county in the state. As of the April 22 census estimate from the United States Census Bureau, we are 362,000 people. Our annual growth rate is 2.7 to 3% per annum. We are the fastest growing county in the state. And as such, our interests are not just here in Rutherford County, but they stretch from Mountain City to Memphis. And I think it's time that we had the professional expertise in Nashville that represented our interests. And I'm advocating for that, and I'm asking for your assistance.
You have a number?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
The number I have in mind to solicit now, generally speaking, the interests of this county are shared by a number of counties across the state, and indeed I have been in touch with a number of mayors that are facing similar circumstances. And so as a result of those conversations, we are coming together with the idea of hiring a lobbyist that represents these shared interests. And I'm asking for this body, what I want to take to budget and to the final commission is the idea of 2 tranches of $50,000 each. For a total of not to exceed of $100,000.
So you're wanting this to move to budget for $50,000 to hire lobbyists?
2 tranches of 50.
Okay, is this lobbyist going to lobby for the Powers Act, or is it going to lobby as a full-time lobbyist for us through all?
The primary goal of this particular lobbying firm would be the change in the repeal of the 2006 County Powers Tax Relief Act. That would be the primary responsibility. However, having said that, and having spent some time in Nashville, I can imagine there will be several initiatives that they may be involved in. So I don't want to confine it to that, but I want to focus on the repeal of the 2006 County Powers Tax Relief Bill, which provided no relief, by the way. And I can go into great detail about that particular piece of legislation if this body so desires, and I would be glad to do so.
Well, let me comment on that, and then I'm going to get to my honorable friend right here. we fought really hard on this. I think Jeff Phillips is one of them also. I have no problem in doing anything that we can to battle this County Powers Act. Also, Mayor, I'd like to, I don't want to say warn, but I definitely want you to understand that there's some serious lobbyists on the other side as well. So,
I know them. I know them probably better than you do, Mr. Chairman, so I understand the
as long as you
buzzsaw.
know
I
it's-
understand the buzzsaw.
so as long as you know.
Absolutely.
I'm
We
going
don't take
to-
up this fight lightly, Mr. Chairman.
I understand. That's as long as you know that up front. I wanted to give him my partner here because he fought this as hard as anybody. So go ahead, Mike. No, he can't make the motion. You had to make the motion.
Let me go ahead and make the motion, and then I'm going to add some discussion after that. But I am happy to make the motion to allow this discussion to be sent to budget for discussion, and then hopefully on to full commission. And that is to allow up to $100,000 to be set aside for 2 lobbyists or 1 lobbyist?
One firm, 2 tranches of 50 each.
Okay.
For a total of not to exceed 100,000. And I can explain why I'm doing it in 2 tranches if you would like for me to explain that.
Rachel, did you get that?
I can do that in budget too.
Okay, all right. So that is the motion.
We have a second? Commissioner Reed?
Discussion?
Discussion.
Okay.
I can see you're ready for this.
we-
So go get him.
This is something that this county should have undertaken 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. As a businessman and a member of one of the largest and oldest trade associations in North America, oldest for sure, we pay a lobbyist firm to keep their finger on the pulse in Washington, D.C. on things that affect companies like the one I'm involved in. You get 100-fold back what you put in financially, because these people pay attention to what our competition does that try to box us out on specifications and things like that. But they also keep us informed on what's coming up in terms of legislation, EPA, and just a variety of things like that. Now, not to take anything away from our legislative body, right? This is, I mean, they've got their own job to do up there. But a lobbyist looks out for our best interests and warns us of the tides that are coming and helps us navigate through that. And I'm telling you, whether it's $100,000 or $200,000, these people pay for themselves over time. Now, I can't tell you, Craig, anybody in here that has dealt with the Powers Act, who knows how many millions of dollars that has cost us over the last 25 years. So to get any relief from that, again, $100,000, I would, if I had the money, I would write a personal check for that. But, and you said it, that would be their primary objective, but they also need to keep their ears and eyes open on all the other things that affect the county government. So I want them to be cognizant 360 degrees of all the things that they can help us with, not just the Powers Act.
Well, I'll comment on this too. Me and Mike, we talked about this numerous times. When we were trying to do the Powers Act the last time, we got slammed by lobbyists. Yeah. And the lobbyists hammered us all the time. We had nobody to help us or protect us or, like Mike said, give us any type of information whatsoever. I don't agree with Mayor on everything, but I agree with him 100% on this. And I have a motion, I have a second, And any other discussion? Commissioner Reed?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to tell you, anybody that has spent time down there knows the importance of what this can mean to us. Of course, I spent my lifetime working for an organization that kept 2 to 3 lobbyists down there all the time, the Tennessee Farm Bureau. So I know the importance of what it is to have somebody down there speaking for you on those days you can't be down there to do that. When I retired, I hadn't been back to the legislature since 2013. And when I left out of there, I spent time in the press corps down there for Farm Bureau. But I know how some of that works. And I made my first trip back down there this past week. First time I've been to Cordell Hull, Mayor. And I had to appear before a joint committee of House and the representatives there, the Senate and the representatives, on an audit situation. And when I walked through the doors, and you probably know this, when you walk through the doors, that feeling hits you again of what goes on there. And that's what we need down there, somebody that knows, which drawer everything's in. And we've got to have that. I've spent the day coming from that audit committee meeting that I was in down there last week. That committee told me, based on one rule that was in Tennessee Code annotated that happened in 1931 that was passed, that I need to be working on that. And I've spent the day dealing with the current group down there now, telling me that, well, we already have other laws that says we don't have to do that. So I've been dealing with our legislative delegation trying to get that taken care of. We've got to have somebody down there that knows how to do this, how to move it through, and I think this is the best deal we've got.
So much of what goes on down there, and this isn't a surprise, and really it's a good thing. It's based on relationships. It's based on familiarity. It's based on and it doesn't mean these people aren't on the opposite sides of an issue, but they're known. And the last time I was in the General Assembly was in 2014. I bet you in the Tennessee House, a third of the members than when I was there are no longer are left there. So 2/3 turnover since I've been there. And I'm going to be going down advocating on behalf of Rutherford County. But I've got to start all over again with 66 new members that I don't know. And if we employ professionals who make it their profession to have a relationship with these legislators, we now give ourselves the opportunity to stand on a level playing field with somebody advocating for our interest. And that's the point of this, is to get on a level playing field. And I'm really encouraged by the remarks tonight, and I appreciate you letting me bring this proposal before you. Thank you.
All right, but let me also be very clear on my feelings about this. I do not want to alienate our delegation. This is not a slam at our delegation. So I know that I have a lot of confidence in our delegation, and I believe in them, but I do not want this as a slam to them. So, anybody else? Any more discussion? All right.
Craig, I actually think this will help our delegation. This will get things they're working on moved to the next level. And this kind of reminds me of, I can't remember the coach, Houston Oilers way back when, burr haircut, cowboy hat, Bum Phillips. They were talking about, was it Emmett Smith? I can't remember. You said, in a room full of equals, we want to be the most equal. And when we are compared with other counties that are lobbying or trying to get the same thing, without a lobbyist, we are not the most equal. So that's the phrase I want to leave you with. In a room full of equals, we want to be the most equal.
All right. We have a motion, and we have a second. This is roll call, so go ahead.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Commissioner Beverly?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Chairman Harris.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Is there any other business? Seeing none, this meeting is over. Thank you.